If you want to make a whole lot of money by making things on the internet, you have to sell one of two things: either a service or yourself. Selling a service is usually a very low ego prospect. You're just providing things that people want and people need. This can go more personal if you're selling something like a review that is meant to help someone decide whether or not they want to buy a video game. But it can also go much more in the way of service if, say, you're literally mailing things or doing some kind of t-shirt business like Redbubble or something. All of that in some way falls into the service category. Selling yourself, on the other hand, means selling your opinions and your autobiography. Being able to sell your opinion is hinged on being capable of having a good opinion. People will value a certain level of attention to detail and intellect and ability to present well, to use the language well, to represent the art form well in order to take your opinions seriously. Though you can also have popularity just by mimicking whatever the most popular opinion is, just spouting the populist rhetoric back at the populists and just saying exactly what everybody else is saying. That falls more onto the service end of the spectrum than the selling yourself side of the spectrum. But nonetheless, your opinions are more of a service to people. People are trying to use your opinions to help them to digest whatever media they're consuming, or to, decide what to purchase if they're making a purchase, decide what kind of jobs to go into. I think of a channel like How Much, who has YouTube sort of as a business in which he explains how well running other personal businesses, services that generate income are worthwhile. Like, his channel is about determining which things are, building a Bitcoin farm. Is this a worthwhile use of my time and money and investment? That is a service, but it's also him literally doing it and then also making a YouTube video for profit of him doing it. So, you see how this is like a compound service kind of initiative. If any personality comes doing those videos, it's just through the nature of someone being a YouTuber and trying to present themselves, in a way that they can provide a good video experience while also providing a service to people. But the other thing that you can sell is yourself as a person of interest, as someone who is in themselves a creator. If you are making movies, for instance, you are kind of doing something more like this. You are providing a service in that you're trying to entertain the viewer, but you have to have a certain level of personality to even be able to evoke something in the audience. You have to have a certain charisma in the way that you go about doing things for your name to be spoken of as, say, a filmmaker on a higher level. But if you're a YouTuber, you have the same kind of story. Can you make interesting content that has a unique enough style that people recognize you and consider you to be, a celebrity in yourself, even if a lot of what you're doing is to comment on other things? You can find some kind of slotting in on the spectrum there. There are people who present themselves as YouTubers, but also are trying to make analytical reviews of each new show as a service to people who are interested in hearing an analytical review about a new show. And then there's people who are purely cataloging some kind of extreme niche interest, but there's often a community element to that as well. I think of something like SNES Drunk. That is kind of a service that he's providing of reviewing every single Super Nintendo game, but he injects a lot of his own personality into it, so it has its own unique flavor as a channel, which to me makes it more interesting than a lot of the channels that do something similar but just don't have that extra edge of personality. But that guy is literally the moderator of the Super Nintendo subreddit. Like, he is somebody who is really in that community and doing things for the sake of that community. And you can see that in a lot of the styles of videos he makes, even while still, having enough of his own flavor and personality to keep it interesting. So I obviously fall more on the selling your autobiography side of the spectrum, even though I still provide videos as service to some extent. I try to keep up with what's current so that I can give people the most interesting analysis from the perspective of, someone watching current anime. Like, there's not really a ton of people who keep up with that much of the new shit that comes out, and a lot of them have nothing really to say about it or aren't as opinionated as I am, and a lot of my viewers just are very particular, and they enjoy, pointing out the flaws in something just as much as they enjoy actually enjoying a show. So, like, it's entertaining to have somebody who's more opinionated and is going to really narrow the playing field of what shows are worthwhile to continue watching, A lot of these people have a lot more time. They might be a little bit older than the audiences of the other channels, but still young enough to be able to waste all their goddamn time watching hours and hours and hours of the human content machine. But some of y'all never grow out of it. Shout out to everybody who works a job that allows them lots of time to just watch YouTube videos, and I am just the guy you chose. And believe me, that's my life. All I do is watch YouTube all day and enjoy things like video games, which are, like, even more than any of the kind of creativity I've talked about already, really at the intersection of service and personality, where the more you go in one way or the other is controversial to different groups of people, where, there's major disagreement about what is a good or bad game because of the fact that some people want games to be more of a service with a personality, but a service for catharsis, for, the ability to exercise your own talents as a player, to be able to maximize your capabilities and, to really be good at something, to even competitive levels that are being celebrated as real sports, since it's pretty much no different, on a grander level of society. Whereas there's another crowd who would be perfectly comfortable relinquishing all tactile feedback from a video game to just read a story. And, they are equally respecting the art form of what that kind of game is trying to do, but that is a totally personality-driven game. Either in the sense that you're an author, which, again, like being a filmmaker, has a sliding scale of how much of this is for the audience and how much of it is trying to express my own unique vision of things. Nobody, can go completely into their own skull, or else you won't be successful in any way. So, like, maybe you can make pure art films, pure expressions of ego, just be an egomaniacal psychopath like me, and you'll be able to, show people an aspect of humanity that they just didn't know about. Maybe they're just looking at it in disgust. Maybe they're watching me because they legit just think I'm a lolcow, and they're like, wow, this is the depth of depravity that society has reached, is this guy. I am studying this for the sake of future generations of research, so that we know what to ban, what to, what we need to squash out of our society in the coming decades of the New World Order. And I just am myself. I don't really try to present it one way or another. You can enjoy my videos however you want. Just give me enough money to make it worth my while on Patreon. And if you sell autobiography, that is the best way to make the Patreon money. You will more likely have more offensive or more, out of control opinions, and you're less marketable. Services are easier to market. It's easy to make a brand deal with a service-like channel. It's not so easy to make a brand deal with someone's identity that is controversial, So the people who respect your identity, regardless of how society looks at it, are the ones who are going to donate to you on Patreon. However, there is an optimal strategy for maximizing both, and it requires you to be a legitimately good person, to be somebody who is disciplined, who has values, but is also open-minded and non-judgmental. If you are legitimately this kind of person, you are CGP Grey. You are somebody who is a teacher, who has lived in multiple countries, who has weird obsessive tendencies that give them a very strong personality. However, they have no prejudices, no biases, purely takes everything on fact, does mountains of research and fact-checking, laments every detail, anything, any I that was left undotted. He's, puking on the ground at the thought that he missed that detail that nobody else gives a single fuck about ever. And we all know this about him. And so people listen to him because he has a podcast with the Number File guy, and they have a lot of personality. It's just a very clean personality. So he can be completely a service. All the videos are very much a service, and an important one, covering topics that really stick with people a lot of the time, that are things like the alternative vote that, I think his video series may very well have inspired why Andrew Yang has that as part of his platform, which I personally am a huge fan of. So, there's an effectiveness to the service of these videos, but he also is a personality, and that's why he has one of the bigger crowdfunding platforms. He is capable of having an audience who really cares about him and also thinks that he is just providing an important service for humanity, while also just giving them the luxury of a personal podcast with lots of just weird, nerdy, errant details of two soft-spoken teacher guys who are, just very pleasant to listen to because they are so A+++ student type people. You just want them to be the ones teaching. So, those are all the different ways that you can make a lot of money on YouTube. Either be a very strong personality that people want to let you exist just so they can look at you, or provide a service to people. It could be through your opinions, which is a little bit more of an ego-branded kind of thing, and you can really, be on the scale somewhere. I'm on the scale somewhere between those things. And, or you can be really a serviceman who's just making tutorial videos, or even video game long play. Some of these things aren't really going to make you that much money, honestly. You'd have to be extremely dedicated to doing it and be the best at it to get any attention for that, or just be a really great player, who people want to watch play. But to be a professional streamer, you're competing with everybody else because streaming happens all the time. So it's hyper competitive compared to any of these other industries. So, there's definitely a service and personality element to that. And again, the people who can tread the line the most carefully are the ones who are going to be the most successful. So that's your handy dandy guidebook.